you allow yourself to be kind of reckless, but within bounds, right? So probably not a good idea to drive at night without your glasses if you have glasses, or to blindfold yourself and jump off a cliff, right? Like that's a little foolish. But I think in today's world, for the most part, especially if you live in the West or America, everyday life is actually really predictable and too safe. And actually, my thought is the reason why people are so bored and depressed or whatever is that there is actually a lack of challenge and difficulty in everyday life. You know, consider if you're some sort of tech worker or Silicon Valley person, you know, you probably got a healthy paycheck, blah blah, and the work is more drudgery and pain and annoyance rather than real sorts of danger. And so that's why I find that street photography is so great for me, because there's actually an element of risk that you might piss somebody off, right? Or get into altercation, whether physical or verbal. And that's what makes this so enjoyable. So then the goal in life is not like conflict avoidance. It's more of just pursuing the thing that you love, in spite of the fact that it might cause some sort of conflict, right? And maybe the question then is self-confidence towards what ends, right? Like, is there a social economic benefit to self-confidence in the individual? So for me, I would rather be foolishly self-confident and happy rather than being too overly cautious and prudent and be miserable. And I think also like certain things like this is where I study stoicism or taking on more asceticism is useful, because I know if I could go totally broke or whatever, like it's not gonna, like I grew up poor, so it's not something that scares me. It's knowing what your ultimate downside might be. And also currently I almost spent money on nothing, but you know, got mucho dinero in speculative investments and US dollars in the bank and stuff like that. And so, you know, Nassim Taleb calls it FU money, right? Or I think Dr. Dre calls it fuck off money, is that you got enough money that you could just kind of fuck off for a long time, not do nothing, and then you don't have to worry about just paying the bills and stuff like that. But anyways, and so what financial independence is, it's not even having X amount of money. It's more of like when you're in a position where you could totally become financially destitute and you could still be happy and truck on doing whatever you do. So to me, financial independence is kind of more of a mental thing, because no matter how rich you are, unless you have the correct mental structure, you ain't ever gonna feel financially secure. So for example, let's say your net worth is $1 million, right? You're like, oh, if I only had $10 million, I'd feel secure, right? Got $10 million, it's $100 million. 100 million becomes what? 1,000 million, what's that? A billion? Billion. You don't want to be like a billionaire, right? You have $1 billion, go to McDonald's, you buy a hamburger, and then boom, you're not a billionaire anymore. You're only a 999 millionaire. So a multi-billionaire. Then what, you want to become a centibillionaire? You want to become a trillionaire, right? So there's no end to our limits. Even the Stoic philosopher Seneca, not my kid, said to his friend Lucilius, set a definite end to your gettings. Like, no matter how much corn piles you store up from Africa, you ain't finna never have enough, okay? So, and then how come, and then Seneca also has an interesting idea, right? Is like, how come, like, everyone always thinks that they're not rich enough, right? How come nobody ever thinks I might already be too rich, right? Like, that's never a thought. And also the funny thing is, I've learned is from the people I've met who are actually super rich and successful, they never call themselves rich or successful. They're like, oh, you know, I'm living very comfortably, or I'm lucky, or whatever, right? No one's allowed to be like, I'm rich as fuck, right? Like, be like Dr. Dre, I'm rich as fuck and back to work, right? So, personally speaking, I feel rich as F. Maybe objectively I'm not as rich compared to, let's say, Jeff Bezos or Kanye, but once again, I think it's kind of a mindset thing, and comes with, you know, good sleep, good rest, good digestion, eating well, eating a lot of meat, working out, powerlifting, hitting new PRs, having a sense of growth. I think is actually something that's actually super essential in life. So even something I've discovered is, and then this is the reason why I love powerlifting so much, is that I have superseded all of my physical strength markers by a massive margin. So for example, like a few days ago, I deadlifted, I think what, 551 pounds? What was that, 250 kilos? Yeah. I'm like, what, 160 pounds, 165 pounds, I'm not sure. Like around 5'10", 5'11". I'm not even sure what that is my body weight. I need to do the math later. But when I was back in the States, right? My goal for so long is, oh, I want to hit the 5-plate deadlift, which is what, 495 pounds or something? 500 pounds, you want to break the 500 pound barrier? And bro, I'm like already at 550 pounds, like that's crazy. And so now 600 seems within reach, 700, 800, 900, 1,000, whatever, right? And I think also with self-confidence, it kind of comes from thinking very long term. So think about it this way, like if you want to get super duper strong or swole, whatever, right? Everyone always thinks about the overnight transformations or whatever, but if you do the Kaizen approach, right, where you improve just a little bit day over day or week over week, right? If you can increase your 1 rep max in your deadlift, but let's say 5 pounds every single week, right? That's 2.5 pound little potato chip on each side. It's like you're roughly adding, in theory, right? You could roughly add 250 pounds to your deadlift every single year, right? And let's say you start off at 0 pounds. After the first year, you could deadlift 250 pounds. Then in theory, you keep that up. The second year, you should be able to deadlift 500 pounds. You keep that up, by year 3, you can deadlift 750 pounds. And by year 4, you can deadlift 950 pounds. I mean, certainly, it's not going to happen for most people, well, whatever. But that's where thinking very long term at like the decade plus level is good. Like, if you have a really big passion for building a certain business or becoming self-employed or whatever, if you just give yourself, like, if you work on it a little bit every single day or even once a week, but you do it for a decade, 2 decades, 3 decades, I'm like, how are you not going to succeed? Like, it's almost impossible, right? Even for me, you know, I graduated UCLA, I studied sociology. Cindy helped me apply and find an internship doing like social media marketing, online community management. And while I was working as an intern, working full-time, I was building up my blog, social media presence, whatever. And, you know, I would blog maybe 3 times a week, consistently. And then after a year, company IPO'd, then tanked, and then everyone lost their shirt. I got made redundant. My boss lost his job too. But for me, it actually ended up being a blessing in disguise. And it's also like with self-confidence, it's almost like you become a little bit indifferent whether you succeed or fail. Like even when I'm like, okay, I'm gonna try this street photography thing full-time and teach workshops or whatever, or sell t-shirts, or I don't know, I'll figure out something, right? I wasn't 100% sure how it would go, but I'm like, okay, it's either now or never, and I'm gonna give it my all. And as a consequence, you know, I gave it my all, right? And you kind of have the fire up your asshole, right? Because I had pretty much like no money in my savings. And I was able to succeed, right? Fortunately. But even if I didn't succeed, I'd be able to go to sleep, rest, death, whatever, knowing that at least I gave it my all. And this is also the same thing with the gym, is that if you had 100% focus, you gave it your all, you failed, you missed the attempt, it's almost not that big of a deal. It's like, oh, that's cool, you know, I'll just take a week off, eat a bunch of meat, get some all you can eat shabu shabu, and I'll try again. And so to think of the daily perspective is kind of not good. I prefer to think more at least the week level. Like if I have one good day a week, to me that's my life is good, right? Or even one good day every 2 weeks or a month or a year, right? Even in photography, if you can make one photo once a year that you're really proud of, I think you're kind of doing your job as a photographer. And then, you know, considering, let's say you shoot photography for 30 years. If you have 30 really phenomenal images at your death portfolio, you've superseded most photographers. Like even Henri Cartier-Bresson, who's like the greatest photographer of all time, you only probably know him for like 3 of his pictures, you know, Jumping Puddle Man, Bicycle Photo, and etc. So with self-confidence, know that failure and success is not really, doesn't really matter. What really matters more is enthusiasm, time, effort, and not being afraid to fail.